Ndinoda kuti nyika isiwe vanhu vangu inguva yedu hatingatadzi kubudirira Mwari ari parutivi pedu rambai muchirwa 'Cause my hitters gon' die, and real hitters gon' shine and my people gon' rise 'cause we're born to win, I ain't saying but I'm saying loyalty's my favorite characteristic of God, but finding it in it is hard. It's like trying to find God. You're the only one in your camp with cheese. You pay for everything they eat. Man, that insecurity is deep. Now I ain't said no names. These are just theories. If you hear me, baby, it's home. You must admit it's kinda eerie, baby. Like them chemtrails in the sky. Hate the selling the slaves, kinda like the combines. We say everything in moderation, but don't do it in moderation. The lies of a gluttonous generation. 10-year-old girl in.
Grand Rising, everybody. Welcome to The Day with Trae. I'm your host, Trae Holiday. And of course, I want to welcome you to this literal warm Wednesday here during this heat wave week. But of course, it is definitely warm here. You guys know it is Wednesday, so that means I get to tap in with my guy, Brian Callanan from Seattle News, Views, and Brews. We're here all about what's happening tonight on Seattle News, Views, and Brews with him and David Croman. Also, I'm so excited because I get to sit down with James Earl Jones II. He is one of the crew and cast members of Come From Away that is playing right now at Fifth Avenue Theater. And I get to talk to him about this because I definitely saw this show on Friday and was so blown away. It is a phenomenal show. But you guys know that's coming a little bit later. It's the top of the show, so it's the best time for you to tag and share the stream. Please tag and share the stream with folks you feel could benefit from a daily dose of dopeness right here on The Day with Trae. Of course, if you cannot watch us, no worries. We also got you covered on every podcast platform imaginable. You guys just search Converge Media Network, Google, Spotify, iTunes, Apple Music, anywhere you find your favorite podcast. You guys can find us there as well. So search Converge Media Network and then search The Day with Trae. So you guys can find me right there. Want to give a huge shout out to all of our supporters and our listeners. We appreciate y'all. Y'all keep us on air. Y'all keep us running. But also, I think it's real testament to hear all of the stories of the impact. You know, yesterday, Jordan was here and just gave such a phenomenal personal account of his brother being in Yemen and, you know, why he started photography. And I heard from so many people about how inspiring and just touching his story was. And that's what this show is all about. We want to bring guests here that are going to educate you, inform you, and also inspire you. And of course, one of our biggest recurring guests here when it comes to educating us and informing us and keeping us engaged is my guy, Brian Callanan from the Seattle channel, but also from Seattle News, Views, and Brews right here on Converge Media. He's coming up next, and he is joining us from his studio at home. We so appreciate him. It's, of course, the Booth of Truth. What's up? Hi there, Brian. How are you?
I'm great. Good to be back with you, Trae. And I'm sorry I couldn't join you in person, but I'm trying to stay cool here as best I can. We've got another hot one today.
Oh, yes, we do. And yesterday was already a scorcher. I know a lot of people are getting prepared. I am so thankful because a friend of mine brought me a whole AC unit and installed it for me. Shout out to friends out there that are caring for others because my whole condo needed that fresh air. So I'm so glad that you at least were able to join us because, you know, Brian, I look forward to these Wednesdays. Man, what's going on tonight on Seattle News, Views, and Brews?
Got a lot of stuff happening on the show tonight at 7 o'clock. I'm with my co-host, David Croman, and we're talking about something that's going on in Seattle right now, and that's the search for a new permanent police chief. As you might know, there will be a few community conversations around this. There was one just last night at North Seattle Community College, and coming up on Saturday afternoon, started at 3 o'clock, there's going to be one down at the Rainier Beach Community Center. So people are invited to check that out. You can also check it out virtually, but this comes at a really interesting time, I think, for the police department, Trae, because as you know, the mayor is right in the middle of trying to push for a new hiring plan to try to get some more officers on board. 109 officers, again, lost over the course of this year. They're down at record low levels, at least in terms of what the police are saying there. So they're very interested in making sure that they get those levels back up. So what's a police chief inherit with that kind of a situation? Also, and we just heard from this yesterday as the Seattle City Council was briefed during its public safety meeting about a mid-year report on what the Office of Police Accountability, what the Community Police Commission were saying about the police department, how they were doing with some of the different issues that have been lingering for a couple of years here. I'm talking about the ruses the police used during some of the protests of 2020. That hasn't been completely figured out. How is the police department going to be able to make sure that we keep our general populace informed, but do it in a way that's responsible? So there's a few different pieces that are moving around here. And I just think it's going to be a very interesting time, Trae. Are we going to stick with interim chief Adrian Diaz? He's been doing a lot of work over the past couple of years, but there's been some pushback from the Community Police Commission that says, okay, that work looks good, but are we getting all the data here? There's some concerns with how the SPD is putting out data, at least in terms of what the CPC is saying. So there's a lot of moving parts here, but I think it's really important for people to get involved in this because some of these candidates are going to be in front of you over the next couple of days here. And I really urge people to check it out. I know Mayor Harrell wants to make sure people are weighing in with their opinions about a new police chief.
Yeah, this is one thing where the process has been, community centric to a certain degree, Brian. I've been getting the emails. I know a lot of community based organizations are getting them because they are really looking to engage community in this search for the new police chief. And of course, we always say, well, all right, what has Chief Diaz been able to do from a community perspective? Is this where we get to actually, work with somebody who's already building relationships in community? Because that right there is the key, I think, for many Black community members in particular. And what I keep hearing is we don't have trust in the police force. And so it's going to require somebody to be super intentional and purposeful about the way that they build the relationship with community members. And I don't just mean the ones who come down to City Hall all the time or the ones who are, right there for the mayor to give a phone call to. I'm talking about everyday families out here that need to understand what that chief is going to be doing for them. And particularly, we've talked about this, Brian, when we talk about bringing new police onto the force, what kind of police, right? Are we just accepting it for the sheer numbers? You're talking about 109 police officers, or are we actually looking at the pedigree of that officer that's coming into Seattle? This is something that's huge for community because ultimately it comes between me and an officer. If I got to call somebody, I go back to Charlene Laus, Brian. You know what I'm saying? It's like, look, she called for help. And unfortunately, she got shot and murdered by the police. So there's so many deep layers for this for many of us. And, it's a twofold kind of process because as you were talking about before, and I know you guys have been on this, Brian, like, look, if we get somebody new, maybe it's somebody who already has some new strategies that we can now inject into the process. But secondly, I just got to tap on this because our guy right here at Converge Media, Omari, was on this story when it came to the police ruses. And we cannot afford for that to be the way that these new police officers or the current police officers are going to continue to move. Already, there's no trust in OPA, right? Nobody actually believes that they're doing anything toward police accountability. We see this time and time again. Their reports are mere suggestions for the officers and the chief to be able to take into consideration. But it's not like, hey, these are obligations for you guys to make changes. So there's a lot that I think needs to be worked on here.
Yeah. And I want to just make sure I touched on a few pieces there that you brought up, Trae. I think there's a lot of different moving parts here. You think also that this department is still under a federal consent decree process for a use of force issue that dated back more than 10 years here. So this is something that a new chief, whoever that will be, will have to deal with. Also will have to deal with trying to figure out how to gain not only the trust of the community, but the trust of his or her officers too. When you talk about a contract for the police guild that hasn't been settled yet either. So that's a really interesting balancing act. And one more piece to this, I thought it was very interesting. The mayor, in talking about this, says he wants this leader who's going to engage the community, drive changes, etc. But he also said, and I'll quote this piece here, support a new third public safety department. And I'm not exactly sure what that's going to be, but I think that's going to be a situation where trying to figure out how a different branch of public safety gets established here. The people who could go out to those wellness checks, things of this nature, potentially could have some of the background they need psychologically or mental health wise to help in a case like Charlena Lyles. So I think that the mayor is very interested in getting, it could be a unicorn, right? Someone who knows how to do all these different things here, but it's very important. It's not just going to be police work, it's going to be community work and also trying to establish this third layer of public safety that the mayor is talking about too.
Well, that's interesting too, because it's been a long conversation in many communities, right? That really end up suffering from, kind of honestly blatant racist practices that have really embed the system when we talk about policing. But, the fact that there could be some other wing, right, that says, look, we're not coming with arms. We're not coming from that perspective.
Yeah, not
we're really
sworn
coming
officers.
to help, to negotiate, to de-escalate. Right. Like we've seen this happen. We've seen actual practices of this happening at the community level. And we've been saying for a long time they need to be scaled up. So I'm glad that that's taking shape. What else is going on tonight, Brian?
We're going to be talking a little bit about something that's happening in terms of town halls this week as well with the future of our Seattle park system. We have a Seattle Park District that we put in place as voters in 2014 that set apart a separate taxing authority. So the members of the city council make up the board of that taxing authority, but this is something where the city has had a certain tax rate on this for the past several years, since 2014. Now they're considering raising that, actually doubling it potentially. So what would cost the average house payer about $155 per year could potentially now cost close to $300. And I've talked with a few different people about this. I know it's an issue for a lot of different people who are of limited means, and Councilmember Alex Peterson has definitely brought up that concern on the city council. But in talking to Councilmember Andrew Lewis, who is the president, or the head, I should say, of the park district here as a member of the Seattle City Council, he wants to make sure that we're doing the things that actually bring our parks up to the level they need to be. Because you think about it, through the course of the pandemic, through the course of all these different major climate events we've had over the past several years, and through the protests of a couple of years ago, parks have been front and center on this. And I think a lot of council members will say, we very simply have not been making the investment we need to in our parks. So it's a long conversation. There will be some public meetings happening this week in the District 7 area, so downtown Magnolia area. This one's up in Queen Anne, but there will be some all over the city over the course of the summer here, looking for feedback here to make sure people get their voices heard on this, because parks are a crucial part of really getting through the heat. When you talk about the spray parks that we have in Seattle, wading pools, things of that nature, but they're all also important places to gather, and they can be centers of protest too. So I think there's a lot of questions people have out there about what their parks need to be and what they want from them in the years ahead, and that's going to be an important issue too this week.
Well, this is really important, Brian. I mean, we're talking about public space and use of public space. There's a couple of things that ring in my head as I was listening to you. Number one, because I have this real intense insight on the Garfield Superblock project, I realized that that was actually where the city dropped the ball. They said that they were going to redevelop the park. And unfortunately, they were like, well, we're not going to do it. Don't have the funding, whatever.
Right.
They dropped the project. And it was on the backs of community members, legacy community members like Robert Stevens, who said, we have to continue with the redevelopment of Garfield Park, just like they redeveloped the school, they redeveloped Quincy Jones Auditorium. We have to now bring that redevelopment into the park space. And it was something that then he pulled together a coalition to continue to press for. If it wasn't for community members really utilizing their voice to say, we need to do something about this park in particular and bring it up to speed. It is one of the central parks right there in the Central District that needed a lot of maintenance. We're talking about the restrooms really not being accessible. So there's a lot of different issues there. And it's unfortunate that, sometimes it takes the voice of our community members. We know this for many different issues outside of parks, to really change the game. But I really appreciate the fact that community members have gotten together to press for that, and that now the city is really looking at all of the parks. I do agree, though, in terms of everybody fronting the cost on this, because everybody doesn't have the luxury to access parks. And that's my other concern there.
Right.
You're talking about a family, maybe it's a single parent household. They got two or three jobs. They're shuffling, trying to make ends meet. And unfortunately, to now say they don't even have time to go to the parks or take their kids to the park. And so sometimes these kind of blanketed approaches don't really account for that.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of different concerns there. And I also forgot to mention the intersection with homelessness and our parks too, which has been a huge issue over the past several years. So I think the council is trying to move forward here as the
Yeah.
park district and making sure they get the feedback that they need so that these parks are clean and safe and accessible and have the programs that everybody's looking for.
Well, Brian, I always appreciate you coming through on
Yeah.
Wednesdays. Make
Yep.
sure folks know where they can find you tonight.
Yep. Make sure you check it out on Converge tonight at 7 o'clock. It's Seattle News, Views, and Brews. We love being on Converge and connecting with all the audiences here. If you want to connect with me personally, at Callanan Seattle on Twitter. Great way to get a conversation going, and I really appreciate the time, Trae, once again.
Always, Brian. Take care, buddy.
All right. You too. See ya.
Oh, so many great topics that they're going to be covering tonight on Seattle News, Views, and Brews. Make sure you guys do tune in. I'm telling you, it is a great way for you to learn what's going on right here in City Hall, what's happening throughout the city. And I love that Brian and David are always on top of these topics. They educate me. So make sure you tune in so you can be educated as well. Well, up next after this short break, I get to talk to James Earl Jones II. We're going to be talking about all things come from away and how he blew me away with his performance. You guys stay tuned after this short break. You're watching The Day with Trae.
In the depths of Belize, the travelers come across the waters, harvesting with their hands, learning of resilience rooted deep in the lands, culture thriving like a fire ablaze, sizzling with a pop and a chop, sharing its ways. Knowledge simmers and grinds into the hearts and minds, cutting away from the surface stories and colonial lies, boiling it down, breaking its shell as the truth pours out and gets plated collectively with love, spooned into bowls, feeding the soul. Garifuna, alive and strong at PALMENTO Grove.
Welcome back, everybody, to The Day with Trae. I'm so excited for this segment right here because I tell y'all all the time, I'm a real theater kid. So watching live theater is one of my favorite things. And this guest right here, James Earl Jones II, tore the house down with Come From Away. What's up, James? How are you?
How you living?
Hey.
I'm good.
So great to have you here. Thank you so much for making time in your busy schedule to join me in the Black Media Matters studios.
Listen,
welcome.
Thank you. I love it. It's great. When you walk in, you just feel like immediately immersed in the Black experience. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. That's really what this is about here. And you know, we love our partnership with, Fifth Avenue Theater. We always want to make sure that we are sharing these opportunities to experience theater with our community who sometimes feels, is that really a space for me? So we really try to make it welcoming and warming. And I know that Fifth Avenue Theater cares so much about that. Yeah. Tell us a bit about what got you into it, because I mean, your name is James Earl Jones II, so people could probably figure it out. Like, oh man, legacy, right? But tell us about like your, start in acting.
In acting in general,
yeah.
I was just a hyperactive kid, and my mother was a teacher in Chicago, and she was like, "We're going to do something with that energy." And so she put me into acting, but I only did a few plays. I actually wanted to be a doctor. I wanted to be a doctor until I got accepted to Emory University in Georgia. And I joined this, I applied for this medical program in high school. I went to Whitney Young, which is the same high school as Michelle Obama.
Oh, right.
And I was, it was between my junior year and senior year of high school. And my supervisor at the University of Illinois Chicago hospitals, he was doing his residency at Fisk. And he was telling me, oh, I only got a few more years left. And I was like, a few more? How long have you been in school? And he was like, oh, I've been to about 8 years. He said, I only got about 4 more to go. And I was like, is that's your timeline. Like, you like to take things easy. He was like, no, doctors are generally, you know, anywhere from 13 to 20 years. And I was like, oh no, Lord, I got to find something else to do. And honestly, I didn't know what to do. But my dad's sister, my auntie Pam, she was like, well, I mean, you sing just for fun. Why don't you go to school for singing? And I said, okay. So that's what I did. I went to University of Illinois Champaign. I went there for vocal performance. So I was my focus actually was opera and classical music. And uh, I, I will say that, like, my journey is very different from many because I feel like I was doing something that I was good at, but I didn't understand my purpose at the time. I felt like, I mean, I sang in Europe. Um, had the opportunity to sing a solo at Notre Dame in Paris, but I still didn't realize my purpose. So, like, I came back after college. I was working at a law firm, another law firm, an African American advertising firm, but I wasn't performing at all. And my voice teacher, um, my voice teacher, the late Robert Berthold, he and I always worked together during high school when I'd come home for college, and we were working together, but I wasn't actually performing. I would just see him every week. It was almost like therapeutic. And then he passed away. And when he passed away, he left me a letter. He had gifted me a piano and boxes of vocal music and a letter that just it basically asked me what I had done with my life. And at the time, I hadn't done much. And so I told myself that I didn't really know how I was going to move forward. I didn't really know what I needed. I just know I needed to do something different. I needed to audition. I needed to find my footing. I just needed to do something. And so I did. I auditioned. That was my New Year's resolution. I auditioned immediately the very next year. I booked this show called The Gondoliers with the Hyde Park Gilbert and Sullivan Society. And then I just didn't stop.
Wow.
And so here I am.
That's really, I think, the story of so many, right? There's always these unique kind of qualifiers and characteristics, but the idea of perseverance, right? Like pushing through it, audition after audition, building upon one experience over the next. I know even for me, I think about my own personal experience and I go, there was something that was so surreal about me landing my first lead role, right? And I remember being like, oh my gosh, it was Miss Firecracker contest, right? And they were like, well, out of all of y'all who kind of made it through the first round, who's willing to dye their hair red for this role? And I was the only Black girl. And I was like, my mom and dad are not having that, right? But for some odd reason, they were like, you know what? We're still going to roll with you. We found a workaround and all this. And so it worked out. And that for me was like a spark. But every time there was this buildup. Well, I could just say that I'm so glad I did see you on Friday and I did not know what to expect. But this story is one that I don't know has ever been told. And the way it's told in this musical is so well put together. Tell me a little bit about your experience, because you play various characters, but when you come out as that captain, oh goodness, you take it to another level too. But tell us a bit about your experience, because this is really an ensemble cast. All of y'all are playing multiple characters. You're on stage the entire time, no intermission. This is like, it's one of a kind, James.
Yeah. So I didn't know anything about the show when I first auditioned for it. And I didn't know anything about Gander when I first auditioned, which I don't think a lot of people do. Like, I'm from Chicago. I still live there. And the events that happened, they happened at a time that was before things were going viral, right?
Yeah.
Like things didn't go viral. So like how you heard about these events, I mean, I wouldn't even know, but I remember my agent. So my agent is Stuart Talent, and my agent Jim. He was like, "Hey, I want you to come in for this audition," and I said, "Great." He said, "I don't know what it's about." And I said, "Okay," and he said, "Do you know?" And I said, "I have no idea." And so I came in, and he just said, "You got to play a lot of characters," and I said, "Okay." So we went in. I came into the office. We did a tape. We sent the tape in. About a week and a half later, I flew to New York, and I did an audition with the creative team and the producers. I came back later that day for a movement call. I saw the show that night because I had never seen it. And then I had one more call back the following morning. I hopped on a plane. I got home. And when I landed, my agent called me super excited and said I booked it. It was very surreal. One of the awesome things, two of our four producers, Kenny and Marlene Alhadif, actually are based here, live here. Kenny has an office at the Fifth Avenue Theater. And I remember him saying that, like, the show isn't just about casting talented people, it's about casting people who reflect the people of this town, good people. Because they're, I'm sure that there are probably far more talented people than us who maybe just don't reflect the same ideals of the show or the community. And honestly, like I just, what I love most about the show, which a lot of people can't say, is that one, it's based on a true story. Two, you have the opportunity to meet these people in real life, and they are exactly like we do, like exactly like the way we characterize them in the show.
Wow.
They are awesome people, full of kindness, and I actually I'm the only one, at least for now, that has had the opportunity to go to Gander.
Wow.
Now, when we opened here in 2018 for the beginning of our tour, most of the plain people that we characterize and the Newfoundlanders came and saw the show for our opening. We all took a bow together. It was pretty epic. But like having Q&As, talking to people, like, what's Gander like? And it was like none of us could say, like nobody knew. And so I flew there in July of 2019, and they are every bit exactly like we characterize them in the story. I think it is really smart that our director, Chris Ashley, he basically picked 6 men, 6 women, and we basically create about 70 characters.
Wow.
And what I love is that the show is like 100 minutes. There's no intermission. And part of the impetus behind that was, I believe when it was first being workshopped, they used to have an intermission after the big screech-in moment into Beverly Bass's song, Me in the Sky. However, I think Chris determined that not only does it lose kind of like the momentum, but he also felt like, well, the people in Gander for 5 days didn't have a chance to take a break, so we won't take a break.
Wow.
And so we just we do the show, and honestly, no matter how many times we do it, whenever people say, are you tired of doing it? I know you must be tired. I know this must be exhausting, but the reality of it is that, like, you never get tired of telling a story that not only changes people for the better, but you don't get tired of telling a story that uplifts people, that connects people, that makes them understand that, like, we can believe in the same things, we can believe in different things, we can love who we love, we can look how we want, and we can all be accepted.
Yeah.
Right. We can all be welcomed.
I felt that too.
Right.
I'll tell you, like that for me, not only is the story phenomenal, because I mean, we're talking about 9/11, which everyone almost in the world kind of experienced it no matter where you were. And I think this show really indicates that.
Mhm.
And just so the audience is aware, this is about the folks who were on the planes, y'all, when 9/11 happened. So they weren't able to land in their respective places in the United States. And all of these planes ended up in Newfoundland in a town called Gander. And that's what James is talking about here, where then the town of Gander of 9,000 people received 7,000. They were calling them plain people, right? Received 7,000 people. And they showed their hospitality in a way that was like far beyond ever reaching. The story for me takes on so many different notes, right? Because from one of your characters that you played, as a Black man being like, I don't know about my wallet being sold, right? Like the idea is that there was something in this show for everybody, all the way down to, the woman who told her story of becoming a pilot, which I thought was so phenomenal. There is something I walked away with it. And I was talking to my friend and I said, there's just something special about how there's something in this for everybody. And so no matter what your day was on 9/11, there's some type of connection you can make to the characters here, which is why I love that you guys play so many different characters and you guys seamlessly go in and out of these characters. Just tell me a bit about that for you, because you play multiple characters. Oh my gosh, then you come in and you have this Nigerian accent and I was just like, I was really blown away, because it takes for an actor, it takes your talent to another level, because then you get to showcase this huge range that you have in one show. Tell us about that for you.
So I think that this show, it is a musical. It is heavy with music. David Hine and Irene Sankoff, the lovely married couple who wrote this show, they wrote it with a lot of music that was it informs you of certain like Irish tunes and even a little bit of jazz.
Yeah.
And there's so many different styles of music, but with the characters, I think that one of the things for me is that, like, even though it feels like a musical, it is an actor-driven show. It's an actor-driven show. And I think that for many of us, we just have a lot of fun creating these different characters, right? And we had plenty of time to nuance them, because we started rehearsing for this show August 27th, 2018. We started performing it here in Seattle October 5th of 2018. And I mean, we have now done close to 900 shows.
Wow.
And so, we have plenty of time to nuance, to change the rhythm, to work on our accents. We have an awesome dialect coach, Joe Goldies, who's based out of California. And he would come to shows, and he'd be like, it was a really great job, but still, here's what you need to kind of work on. And, we're never perfect, but practice makes progress. So we keep at it, and we play with the voices, we play with our dispositions, with the accents. And I think that one good thing is that, sometimes we have a costume piece that we put on, and that informs us and then informs the audience. But I think I remember having a Q&A with a woman in Pittsburgh who was like, am I going to know you're a different character? And I was like, yes, you will. Because I think that early on, the audience at first, for like the first 5 minutes, they might be like, wait a minute. But then it becomes very clear, like, okay, you're a different character now. And some people, after they see the show, will still say, I thought there were more people on stage.
Yeah.
And it's like, nope, It's just 12 of us.
You know, I was going to actually say that when you said 12, because it just felt like you guys were filling the room. I mean, you guys were, even the movement, like the choreography of it, right? In terms of how you guys flow and the movement of, you know, one scene to another and bringing these different characters to life. And like you said, those nuances actually make a huge deal. So I'm so glad that I was able to see the show. And I am glad that you came here, because now folks know a little bit more about what they can expect when they come. But I want to give you that opportunity before I let you go today. Look right there and let them know how they can come and see Come From Away.
Oh, sure. So you can come see Come From Away at the Fifth Avenue Theater. We are there for this week and next week, Tuesday through Sunday. We do 8 shows a week. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday at 7:30 p.m. Saturdays at 1:30 and 7:30, and Sundays at 1:30 and 7:30. Come see us there, and we're going to have an awesome time. Come and be changed.
Yeah, be changed by this phenomenal story. Untold true story that blew me away. It really did. It was so eye-opening to experience so many different characters and for it to be real. I'm telling you, I walked away and I was just like blabbing about it the whole weekend. James, thank you so much for joining me on the Day with Trae today. I'm so glad that I, was able to see you and meet you today. So honored. And thank you for a phenomenal job in this show.
Thanks so much. Thanks so much for coming and for having me on.
Absolutely. Oh my goodness, you guys, I promised y'all it was going to be a treat today. Oh my goodness. You guys are going to want to go see this show, Come From Away. It really did blow me away. And honestly, I'm one who, I'll keep it real and say, well, it was all right. No, this was phenomenal. And the whole time you're not waiting for an intermission. You are waiting for the next story, the next character, the next evolvement of the story that has already been shown to you. There's so many great gems in this. So make sure you guys go check it out. Also, before I let y'all go, there is an opera you got to go check out. It is opera's most winning comedy, The Elixir of Love. You guys want to make sure you guys go check this out as well. Right there at McCall Hall. They are doing some shows right now. You guys can check it out. I can't wait to go see it. I just emailed for my tickets. I'm looking forward to going and laughing. There's nothing more exciting, I think, for me when we're talking about opera. I was still like, am I going to like opera? And already, y'all, the shows that I've seen have been mind-blowing. So make sure you guys get your tickets for that one as well. And of course, for me, I always want y'all to be inspired by the guests that you see here on The Day with Trae. I know we went over again today, but I had to really dive in with James today. And y'all know how me and Brian get when we're talking about the issues here in this city. But clearly, Brian and James are finding their own ways to see themselves as a part of the solution, whether it's being on that stage and sharing stories that are going to be inspiring and touching to the audience, or whether it's Brian diving through these archives, figuring out what's going on at City Hall, bringing us the information. It's always a great time when I have Brian on. And honestly, my guest James today was truly inspiring to me. I hope he was inspiring to you all, not to just go see the show, but for me, it's always about seeing yourself as a part of the solution, y'all. And tomorrow, it is Thursday, so we got our resident coach, Curtis Calhoun, will be in the building. We're going to be going over real lifer tip number 4. We're churning through these real lifer tips, y'all. Make sure you guys tune in. And I'm hoping I get to check in with my girl, Julia Jessie, for Clapback Culture, because it's been a minute and I miss her. So I'm excited to tap in with her and bring you guys all the deets on Clapback Culture tomorrow. Well, of course, tonight, Seattle News, Views, and Brews at 7 p.m. right here on Converge. And for me, y'all, until tomorrow at 11 a.m., peace. Converge Media produces culturally relevant content for Black and urban audiences. Our coverage is raw, transparent, and objective, praised by community leaders, government officials, and residents. Support Converge Media today via Venmo, Cash App, or PayPal at Converge Media.